And we have our panel today because we want you to hear from bankers that are actually that have money service businesses. And it was interesting when we were trying to put the panel together, it's not as common as I think you would think. So it's definitely high risk, and I think several banking institutions have just decided not to take that risk on. But we do have two here to talk to us about it. So Dana, do you want to tell us a little bit about your bank and then tell us what you're doing with money service businesses?
Sure. Yeah, this is Dana Boxtaller. I'm the CEO of BAC Community Bank, and we are located, headquartered in Stockton, California, and we cover Contra Costa, San Joaquin, and Stanislaus counties. So we're mainly in the Central Valley of California. We've been here since 1965. We are owned by one individual. And his family was the original investors in the bank. Today, we're about a $750 million bank with 113 employees. So you can go to the next slide. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about our money service business program. I thought I would start with how we got into it, because I do think our story is a little unique, and I think it does matter if you are considering going in this direction. So on the slide, it does say we've been banking MSBs for over 15 years. In reality, we've been banking them for significantly longer than that. I've been with the bank for over 30 years. And when I started at the bank, we had check cashers, and those check cashers are still with us today. And so we've had some form of MSB check cashers for a very long time. And as BSA and anti-money laundering laws evolved, we had to evolve with those laws. And so our program has really been built over the last 20 years, which would be very different for anybody who is building their system today, which is what we had to do when we went with cannabis banking. We had to build that one from scratch. So we started with the program, and as BSA and AML evolved, we evolved with it. But it got to a point where we had a very robust system built, and we're doing a lot of work, but for not that many customers. And it came down to, are we going to continue to do this and have these really robust systems and the expense and resources that go with it? Or are we going to exit it, or are we going to build it? Because you need volume, in my opinion. You need volume to make this type of program work, because you are investing a lot of money into people and into systems to make it work. So we decided at that time that we would build our program. And where we're at today is we have 52 MSBs. We've been as high as 70 MSBs, but things change, and either they exit or we exit the business with them. So that's how we came to be in the business. And what we do, as Radhika pointed out, there is a significant amount of work that goes into building a program and to monitoring them. And one of the things that we are very fortunate at is at our bank, we have a very talented BSA team and a BSA officer and risk officer. They're very good, and they are also long tenured employees. We have little to no turnover in this department, and they've been doing this for a very long time. So they understand it. They've been through numerous exam cycles, both with the regulators and our external auditors that we bring in. And so they've been doing it a really long time. So we're very fortunate to have this team. And without this team, I'm not sure we would necessarily continue this program if I didn't have that kind of talent within our organization. And they're also very talented in the skills they have in utilizing technology to make it efficient for us. So we've been fortunate, and we continue to be able to do the program because of that team. We do have some very robust procedures for onboarding, for monitoring, and for doing risk assessments for this group of customers. We are pretty efficient at onboarding them because we've done it for so long and have done so many of them, but it is labor intensive to onboard a customer. We do site visits at their place of business before we onboard those customers. We do gather a significant amount of information and prepare a risk assessment on the customer and classify them either low, medium, or high risk before we onboard them. So it does take us some time, but we do move through that process pretty good. We don't advertise it. We are able to get enough customers through word of mouth. All the check cashers talk to each other. And so if they like you as a bank, they're going to recommend you to other MSBs. We also charge specific fees. So any MSB customer that we have, they are in an analyzed checking account, but we have specific fees just because they're an MSB. And we have different levels of fee. The most basic fee, if you are a simple MSB engaged in only one type of activity, we charge $200 a month. If you are engaged in multiple activities, we charge $400 a month, and that's on top of their account analysis fees. So the program does generate a significant amount of fees for us and is a profitable product line for us because of that. But again, you need the volume to make that work, and at least I believe that. Some of our challenges, it is time consuming for our team. There is a high volume of activity that they have to analyze. We do annual risk assessments. So we do a risk assessment on every MSB every year. And depending upon whether their initial classification is low, medium, or high, determines the extent of that risk assessment that we do. And that risk assessment also includes annual site visits. And so we do put a lot of time and energy into our risk assessments and our monitoring. We have used technology well in this area. Again, the team that's in the risk assessment, they're in the BSA department, they are very tech savvy. They do data mining, they build databases, and so they have been able to build the technology backbone that does quite a bit of this analysis on an automated basis for us. So they still have to review the data, but they've built some pretty nice programs that extract the data and put it into the format that they need it in. There are some tasks on the review that are manual, and we do a review of the check activity where we're actually looking for patterns on the maker of the check, the payee, and the location. And pulling the maker and the payee of the check is unfortunately manual. So there is some manual analysis that goes into it. What we do on these pieces where we're just gathering data, it's not really using judgment or assessment, we actually farm that out to some of our branches. So we do have branches that are slow and have excess capacity. And so we utilize those branches to do some of the data gathering for the MSBs, which then the BSA team analyzes. So that's how we try and keep some of the costs down on our review program, is by using that excess capacity. And then, as I think as Radhika pointed out, we do have, frequent FinCEN reporting. We do have reports that we turn in, and then it also, their activity also can generate a number of alerts out of our AML system in terms of alerts which the team then has to clear. So it can be a time-consuming activity, and you really will have to utilize technology to make it efficient and keep your costs down. And just some other things, there are some MSBs, they're not familiar with their anti-money laundering responsibilities, so we do have to educate them. It also tends to be a focus during audits and exams, particularly regulatory exams. They do see our volume of cash that we do process through the bank, and it gets their attention, and they do spend quite a bit of time there. But our audits and exams go very well. One of the other great things about our team is we have a culture of wanting to be in compliance. And so they take compliance very seriously, and they do a very good job. And so while it's work, we actually do quite well in our audits and exams in this area. We are looking to find ways to automate the monitoring process, and I talk with the team about that all the time. And one other area that can be a challenge is the branches. They are the ones that are on a daily basis interacting with the money service businesses who are bringing in their deposits and exchanging those for cash. And so that can be an issue in branches. For us, how it has worked out is that the branches that are servicing the money service businesses, they are actually our slower branches. So we're able to balance our resources in our various branches versus the branches that are busier, so they don't use those.
Thanks. I have a couple questions. You said you don't advertise or promote it, so it's word of mouth, and you've gone from 20 customers to 52 in 10 years. Do you have you set any limitations on how much you would grow this, or it just will come as it comes?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We do look at it from a profitability standpoint, and I do think that there's a point where we are at capacity, and that may evolve and change over time. And so we look at the profitability a number of different ways, but one of the ways we look at the profitability on here is if I exited this product line, what would it do to my bottom line? What would I lose in terms of revenue? But what would I save on the expense side?
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I would estimate that if I exited this business, I probably wouldn't need about a half of an FTE. So am I really going to cut a half of an FTE? You know, I'm probably not going to cut a half a person out of my BSA team. And then the other area would be the fact that I can use my branches. So right now, if I lost the MSBs, I probably wouldn't cut any branch staff either. I'm running a lot of our branches with just 3 people, and they still have excess capacity. Now, if there comes a day where I can get those branches down to 2 people or 1 person, and now I don't have a lot of excess capacity, that might make a difference. But I'm also not going to cut my branch staff either. So for the time being, it makes sense for us to continue it. Do we have capacity to add more? We probably do. We've been as high as 65, 70 and have handled that well. I think that's probably about our limit, given what I've seen in the past, just because then that means we're doing 70 annual risk assessments, we're doing 70 annual site visits. So that's probably our upper limit. But again, as other things in our bank evolve in terms of resources and staffing, that might change that equation on how we look at it. And then also how we can use technology. You know, if I can get a technology that can do some of the manual activities that we're doing and can do that efficiently, then maybe I can continue the program. So we are constantly looking at this program and how it's helping or hurting the bottom line in the bank.
One other question. When you talk about MSB challenges, are there certain MSBs that are more challenging than others that take more effort, and do you steer clear of those, or you just continue to support them with what you have built?
Yeah. I don't think there's any one category. There are some that are more challenging than others. Certainly, if all they're doing is cashing checks, they're actually pretty simple and pretty easy for us. If they're doing multiple lines of business, those are a little bit harder to follow the flow of money. One of the areas I think is challenging, that can be challenging, is when